Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Wow.
Here's my weirdest one ever.
I can hear the violins in the background. Welcome, David, and welcome to all of our listeners around the world, around the country, throughout the galaxy. This is the Feeling Good podcast, and it's episode 454. And this is our second in a series of dating. We have two illustrious, brilliant clinical psychologists as guests, Kyle Jones, who you've heard before, who's a practitioner in Anaheim, throughout California and the world. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Rhonda. Hi, David. Nice to see you.
And we also have Carly Zankman, who is another brilliant clinical psychologist who practices in person in Mountain View and online throughout California and the world. Hi, Carly.
Yeah. Hi, Rhonda.
We're lucky to have both of you awesome, gorgeous, brilliant, beautiful, wonderful, joyous colleagues and friends on the podcast today. And boy, do we have some terrific things, information for all of you who are interested in dating, both for yourself or for your kids or for your patients. It's certainly a widespread, important thing without which the human race would perish quickly. And so we want to show you how to do successful dating, not only for your own pleasure, but for the survival of the human race. And we've got two fantastic experts in many things, not to say the least of dating. Kyle Jones, one of my favorite people in the whole world, and we have spent so many wonderful times together on Sunday hikes and
yes.
Tuesday and other training groups, and working on personal issues of dating and
yes,
and many other cool topics. And Kyle's going to bring us several really amazing things, which he will encapsulate in 20 seconds right now, and then we'll move on to Carly.
The pressure is on. I didn't realize we were maintaining Earth's population here. No, my three top tips I wanted to talk about were practicing the acceptance paradox, and maybe 4 tips actually, and thinking in shades of gray around your perceived flaws, your self-criticisms about yourself, as you think about embarking on dating and things. And then the second thing is I kind of want to spread the word that you're walking into what did we call it, David? A bit of a temptation trap, an erotic, romantic temptation trap.
Yes.
Around, it's going to be so tempting to want to pursue the other person, and that can really make you appear clingy and can scuttle your efforts at having a successful game-playing dating phase. And then I guess the last thing was embracing the idea, having the thought that you can go into dating situations or any kind of social situation to practice interpersonal skills you might not be that good at and let go of the outcome, right? Go in to the situation to practice for the sake of practice, not necessarily expecting to get a date or to be totally successful, especially if, you're a little out of practice.
Okay, so these are 3 biggies for all of you. Number 1, how to accept yourself, even if you feel kind of flawed and less than pristine, and achieve your own sex appeal and inner beauty through acceptance. And secondly, how to avoid chasing people who you get kind of fixated on, get a crush on.
Yeah,
and I've been there.
how to avoid chasing them and inevitably getting rejected, how to make them chase you so you can do the rejecting. And then finally, interpersonal skills for big prizes in dating and in life in general. How is that, Kyle?
Sounds great.
Okay, now Carly's going to take us to an even higher level on all of these topics. And
really,
Carly will now summarize the gems that she's going to be presenting to all of you today.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think one thing that can really hold us back with dating is the fear of rejection. And so talking about ways that you can overcome that and also reframe rejection as more of like a redirection towards what you want. And then the second thing is how some of our negative thoughts or the beliefs that we hold, like I'm always going to be alone or I'll never find somebody, can actually function as a self-fulfilling prophecy and hold us back. And then...
Well, let me summarize those two big goodies so far. Okay. You're going to learn how to overcome the fear of rejection, which is paralyzing to almost everyone in the dating game. And secondly, you're going to show us how to overcome these self-fulfilling prophecies that we get into that make us stub our toes, like telling yourself this date will suck. And sure enough, it sucks. And
right.
I'll always be alone. And sure enough, you've always been alone. And how can we stop those self-fulfilling prophecies? So carry on with the other goodies, Carly.
One of the other things is the just topic of ghosting and how I think with a lot of the dating apps and the way modern dating is now, that seems to be a big theme and issue that a lot of people are experiencing. And so some of the potential solutions internally there for maybe both the person who is ghosted and maybe the ghoster too.
Yeah.
And then the last thing ties into something that Kyle mentioned, but just like how to have more fun with dating and how to be yourself, how to be more playful and just natural, which can be more attractive.
Those are great. Okay. I love it.
Let's dive in. We've got some.
I'd love to read a really short endorsement before we dive in, David.
Yes, you would, Rhonda, and yes, you will.
And this is from a pseudonym, Timothy, and he wrote very briefly, "Dear David, I want you to know how much I deeply respect and love you. You give so much, and the work you do is life-changing. I could go on, but just briefly let me say, with deep gratitude and appreciation, Timothy."
Well, thank you so much. Aww. It means a lot to us to get these kind comments, because we love teaching and sharing some of these secrets with you. And when you write in and say it's working, I'm listening, I'm being helped, that really makes it all worthwhile. So thank you so much for that and the many other beautiful comments that so many of you have sent. And now, we will begin, and Rhonda will direct the action.
Well, a lot of people are so worried about rejection, Carly, and I think it's interesting how you're reframing it as redirection. So why don't we start there?
Sure. Well, I think first, it might be helpful to talk about some ways to have rejection hurt less. Right, David? Like some of the tools that we use as team therapists to overcome rejection.
Go for it, Carly.
Yeah. Okay. So I do a lot of this in my practice treating social anxiety and working with mainly young adults that struggle with fears of rejection. And I think that one of the best ways to overcome it is to expose yourself to it. And so I'll often take people out in downtown Mountain View on Castro Street and just get as many rejections as we can. Like, especially if it's related to dating, you can go out and talk to people and ask them for their phone number or ask for a date, and really with the intention of getting rejected. And then it kind of desensitizes you and can actually be kind of fun at the end of it. And I think that helps, like when you go on a date with somebody and then maybe you really like them and then they don't want a second date, and maybe you get a text like, oh, I wasn't really feeling it and I don't really feel a romantic connection. It doesn't have to hurt. You're just like, oh, okay, on to the next. Which I think goes to the second point of that can then be a redirection, right? You can reframe that rejection as something that then kind of guides you to the next better thing, a redirection to the person that's more right for you, and somebody that finding the love that you're looking for. So I think a rejection doesn't have to mean that you won't ever find someone. It can just be a positive thing that can help you more towards what you're looking for.
That's really neat, Carly. I've heard some sage once said that it's impossible for rejection to upset a human being. That the only thing can upset you is your own thoughts, things that you believe, right. What you're telling yourself. It's not the rejection, but your thoughts. And if you find rejection very upsetting, that what you're telling yourself 100% of the time will be distorted, misleading, illogical. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because when we're getting rejected, we're telling ourselves things like, there's the I'm no good version and the you're no good version. The I'm no good version is that this shows that I'm a loser, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough. I'll be alone for the rest of my life. And
right.
Although those thoughts are incredibly distorted and just extremely cruel and misleading, they seem so real at the time. And then there's the opposite thing of, I think more in men than in women, but I don't have any data on that, the kind of, this is unfair that you're rejecting me because I'd be such a loving, wonderful, nice person. And so you should be wildly sexually attracted to me because I'm so sincere.
There's a little narcissism in that latter one.
Yeah. No, I think everything you're saying is absolutely true. I think sometimes when we get rejected, that then has to mean something about like our worth, or like let's say Kyle and I went on a date, right? And he wasn't into it. Like that doesn't have to mean anything about me or who I am or my value as a person.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not? Well, now we're getting to the deeper topic, right? Of do I even have a self, right, David, which you talk about a lot. Yeah. I think the story in our mind is what kind of creates our reality.
I like what Carly's saying, even about using the rejection practice. Like you can, as an exposure method, but also like an experimental technique too. You could set it up to maybe challenge a specific negative thought. Like if
Absolutely.
I get rejected, I'll be worthless, right? And then you could collect rejections and then evaluate your worthlessness as a human being after each one, and then find that it doesn't go down, like.
Or that it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What style of rejection practice do you two recommend? There's the original rejection practice where you just go out and collect rejections. I remember as a medical student, another fellow and I did that for 2 weeks. I skipped all my medical school classes, and we just went out getting rejections. And we both got 100%. We did it all day long, on the streets of Palo Alto, and then we would go up and do it in San Francisco. And we would just, when we met someone, we were both sincere nerds. And so we would sincerely introduce ourselves and ask for a phone number. And we both must have gotten rejected 150 times in the 2 weeks. We took turns to say, okay, see if you can get her to reject you, see if you can get her or him or whatever. To reject you. And then the other thing, which Kai from our Tuesday group I don't know if he created it or someone in our group created it, but you actually tell the person, I'm trying to overcome my fear of rejection. Yeah. And I wonder if you'd be so kind as to reject me. And that's, do you have a preference for what the second one is a little less threatening?
Right. I'll tend to do both with people depending on the level of, social anxiety that they have. Like we'll start with the second option of kind of the preface. But I think it's definitely easier on like the scale of hierarchy of exposure that would kind of be a easier step to take. And then doing the first option that you said of just kind of going for it without any prefacing.
Yeah. I've always liked that one. Going out and asking for hey, do you want to go on a date with me? And they inevitably say no because you're a stranger approaching them on the street, and it's like, there's a rejection you've collected.
I've had a couple patients actually get dates and phone numbers.
Sure. Yeah. There's always a chance.
That'll be fun. I like what you said earlier when we were just talking before we started recording, Carly, that you can reframe rejection as, woohoo, that's freeing, because now, I won't waste my time with somebody who's interested in me, and I can move on to find someone that I'm closer to, that I relate more to.
I've had lots of experiences like that. And I think the more you do it, the less rejection is scary, the more risks you're actually willing to take. And I think, in our team community, we always kind of practice what we preach. And so I've done a lot of rejection training myself, to the point where even I was able to like write a love letter to somebody and then got rejected. And I was like, oh, great. Like it didn't even, like it kind of like stung for a second. And then I was just totally fine. And I felt free. Exactly what you said.
I've had some fellows tell me that once they overcame their fear of rejection, they actually felt proud when they were rejected, that they had survived and didn't fall into a slump, and really gave themselves a lot of credit. One of my least favorite of all the cognitive techniques was one of the original ones that Beck had. He only had 5 or 6 techniques in the early days, from what I could tell, and I don't think Albert Ellis had a lot of techniques either, just a few. But one of the ones was reattribution. But I think in the dating realm, reattribution means giving a different interpretation from the self-blame. Like if you're rejected, and tell yourself, that this proves that I'm a loser. Like let's say that you flirted with Kyle, Carly, and then he didn't want to date you, and you might have the thought, gosh, Kyle's this handsome, studly guy. I must be a loser, or something like that. And then, how would you use reattribution to deal with that? Reattribution means you think of alternative explanations, other possibilities.
Well, I think that goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Like, what are some of the other reasons that he might have rejected me? Maybe he's seeing other people and there's somebody else that he, likes more. Maybe he is going through a recent breakup and doesn't feel ready to date. There's lots of other reasons that it could have nothing to do with me. That would
like
be
maybe he's gay and you barked up the wrong tree, Yeah.
Yeah, there is something.
Exactly. Or maybe he's a lot younger than me and in a different stage of life. I don't, there's lots of things that could be reasons that have,
I'm not younger, Carly.
I know. David, you're a bit outside of my age window, though. We've talked about this before.
I'm just barely outside the age window, going on 83.
Barely. 50 years is just, for some people it works.
But, we're just joking around, but this is really very, very serious. Someone might not be attracted to me because, like what we said, age or ethnicity, or we're all attracted to certain things and not attracted to other characteristics. Do you, either of you, recommend to your patients, or have you ever used personally the form from Intimate Connections? I think it's 25 things I'm looking for, and an ideal mate.
Oh yeah, I've used that too. That's fantastic.
Tell us about your experience with it, Rhonda.
When people are confused about what they want, filling out that form can be really helpful. And also, when people really want what they want, like I did have a patient who filled that out, and she was committed that she was going to get 100% of what she wanted. And I think she dated about 70 people, and somebody would have a few things. She's like, no, I'm getting everything. And finally, she met someone that had every single quality she had listed.
No way.
Yes. And they're now married and living happily ever after in the home they own.
Wow. Look at that. That's
wow.
Great. I know. So, it's like you go for what it is that you're asking for and that you really want once you're clear about what it is.
Inform our users what we're referring to. Or should we just assume they know all about the 25 qualities I'm looking for and how to use it and why and how to rate it?
Yeah, let's just make people assume that.
Well, also, David, I think like now everything's on like dating apps, right? And so you can have your dating app profile, and like you talk about in the book, right? Like the personal ad, it's kind of the same thing. So you can be really specific and put on your dating app profiles, like exactly what you're looking for. And that can help weed out people that might not be looking for the same thing.
I take it the consensus is we should not let
No, I'm gonna eat so
and how to use it and how
Rhonda will tell us.
I have it. So it's actually called 20 Qualities I'm Looking for an Ideal Mate. And it's broken up into several columns. And in the left-hand column, you list 20 qualities that you're looking for an ideal mate. For example, you could say someone who's available, because there are a lot of people who are not emotionally available, and you want to make sure they are available, or you want to make sure they're single. Or let's say you're gay. You want to make sure that someone has the same sexual preference as you. You want them to be honest or have a good career, be funny, common interests, whatever they are. Sexy, kind. So you list all the qualities that are really important to you. Kind.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you rate each quality on a scale of 0 to 5. And what does that rating mean? Like,
so 5 is the highest possible rating, and 0 is not at all. So you put the name of someone that you have dated or you're currently dating, and then you rate that person on a scale of 0 to 5 to see how much of that quality that they have. And
then do you rate all 20 qualities and add up the ratings?
You rate all 20 qualities for each person, and then you add them up. And there's a scoring key that you can tell how qualified that person is for you when you're looking for the ideal mate.
Wow. Yep. I might make this into a spreadsheet and start this for myself, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very helpful, because sometimes you'll idealize a person because of one or two things. Maybe they're like real cute, so you think they're just wonderful, and then you rate them in these 20 areas. Or you can use 25 qualities that you're looking for, and then you rate them from 0 to 4, and it still goes from 0 to 100. But it helps you look at people like what you were talking about earlier, Kyle, shades of gray rather than black or white. And, faithfulness might also be on your list. And
well, can I mention there's a part 2 to this? is that you can also do a cost benefit analysis on the thought there's no point in starting a relationship with someone that doesn't meet all of my qualities. What are the advantages and disadvantages of believing that thought? For this client that I mentioned, she started a lot of relationships who didn't meet all of her qualifications, but then she chose to continue dating until she found somebody that had all of them.
Yeah. So is that what you're recommending, Rhonda? To wait until you find somebody who's perfect? It sounds like you're promoting that twice in the podcast so far.
Well, you don't. Someone doesn't have to be perfect. No. Like, I've been married over 30 years. I don't think Michael is perfect. He's close to perfect, but he's close enough. Don't let him hear me say that.
We'll keep it a secret. It's not like this is being recorded or something.
And if you add up your ratings, I know Aaron Beck used to say, 0 to 100, and if somebody's like a 50 or something, you could say that's worthy of one date to get more information. And if it's a 55, you could date them several times. And Beck always said, if they're a 60, marry them immediately.
That's kind of a low bar. Well, we're having fun, and that leads me to one of the other things that y'all mentioned is that how do you have fun while dating and not be so pressured? Oh my God, I have to meet the perfect person.
Yeah, talk about that, either of you or both of you, because I think that's people are like children, and children want to have fun, and we're just like children who got too big.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that we were all once children, actually.
Yeah, and we still want to have fun, and that's a lot of a relationship. It's not all. There's a lot of aspects to great relationships, but having fun is one. How do you have fun or be playful on dates as opposed to being deadly serious? Oh, what work do you do? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that. Small talk.
No, Carly, go first, then I'll respond.
Okay. One trick. So I think a lot of the time people do what you're saying, David, or, you feel so nervous. It's like there's a lot of pressure around maybe a first date. One trick that you can kind of play in your mind is to like imagine that you already know the person, or maybe you're like meeting with a friend who you feel a little bit closer to. Like, how would you show up on the date? Would you just kind of start talking about some things going on, in your life right now, right? And that can kind of break the ice and have it be less like, oh, we're just interviewing each other and asking each other questions. You can kind of like flow in conversation, and that can make the other person feel more comfortable too, off the bat.
Suppose you're on a date with somebody and you're finding you're both kind of tense, and because this happened to me when I was young, and I'm still kicking myself, but when I was in college, I did construction labor for this fellow in Phoenix who had a construction company, and he had these two daughters who were unbelievably gorgeous, and so this other fellow and I, Dale Soft or something, or Swift or something, he was in our church. I set up a double date, and he was as nerdy as I was. And,
you nerdy? You're nerdy, David?
Yes, that's my one perfection. I'm like a perfect nerd, and I just remember we were so nervous, and they seemed like real interested and open to anything. But what should we have done to overcome that intense anxiety and awkwardness that we were feeling? It's like being in a constant performance type of situation. And
you could always do like a self-disclosure and just name it, right? And break the ice. Like, oh, I'm feeling a little nervous right now. And just being a little vulnerable. And then maybe they'll be like, oh, me too, right? And then in that just instant, right, you build a sense of closeness from that shared experience.
Yeah, I love that, Carly. That's such a neat and easy thing to do. Why might some people be afraid to do that and kind of resist doing that? Often people resist doing the very thing that would be our enlightenment.
Well, because they judge themselves for the negative feelings that they're having. They kind of believe that they shouldn't be anxious, or that they shouldn't disclose how they're feeling, or that they don't want to come across as weak or unlikable because they're feeling anxious. When in reality, I think their anxiety just shows that they're actually interested and care about the date and care about how well it goes,
Yeah, right.
Right, or that they're the only one, right? Like, for some odd reason, when we experience these social anxieties, we think that we're the only person that feels this way, when in reality, I think most people feel that way in social interactions.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, does that move into acceptance? One of the things you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think that's a nice segue into acceptance. It's funny. It reminds me of when I was on a date, and one of my self-critical thoughts that I've had to practice acceptance around is, let's see, I wrote it down here. I get too sweaty and it's disgusting. Right. And I remember being on a date.
There are limits to acceptance, Kyle.
I wasn't dripping sweat, and I think you're right. There's got to be some limits to acceptance, but I was I was perspiring, which can happen when you're anxious. Right. And talk about reattribution. We were outside, we were at a beer garden. It was hot. I was wearing a tank top, and I'm on this date, and then I'm sort of sweating and I'm feeling self-conscious about it. And and I go, God, this is one of my quirks. I kind of get sweaty when I'm nervous and go on dates, and the other person, it was a little kind of, intense, touched the side of my armpit and dripped up some sweat, and was like, I don't mind. It was a very interpersonal kind of erotic connection, after my self-disclosure.
Touch me more. I'm sweating and all kinds of places.
Yeah. And then I felt at ease and I stopped sweating.
Yeah.
But do you see, I was able to, there was two things, Carly was saying, okay, do some self-disclosure, but I also, this is just a feature of myself that I sort of, what am I going to go do? Have surgery and have my sweat glands removed? I don't think so. I just sweat when I get a little nervous. That's just how it is.
A total skin transplant.
Yes, thank you. I'll get a skin transplant. But I think many people struggle with these kinds of self-critical negative thoughts, about yourself, about your appearance in particular, right? And the reality is there's only so much you can do, to change your physical appearance or your, how you are, right? And I think some of those kind of cosmetic things may actually be kind of an important external solution as far as dating goes, right? You don't want to dress like a slob. You don't want to, have no attention to your appearance. You want to make sure you kind of look good, right? But I mean, let me just give you a few other examples of some of my self-critical negative thoughts that I have to practice acceptance around, right?
Right.
Here's number one. My lower jaw juts out too far because I only got a cosmetic fix with braces and not the jaw surgery. It's unattractive. Right? There's one. Yeah. I'm too skinny and thin. Still Skinny Bones Jones, just like they called me in school. My wrinkles around.
Yourself, Kyle.
They called me when I was little, Kyle.
What would they call you?
Bag of Bones.
Bag of Bones Burns. Anyway, the third one here. My wrinkles around my eyes and foreheads make me look too old. My receding hairline is unattractive. It looks like divots out of the fairway on my head. So I mean,
have this with my eyebrows. I feel like on dates, my eyebrows have a mind of their own, so I worry about that. Okay.
Yeah,
and I just name it. I'll be like, I've got really expressive eyebrows, and sometimes they do.
And the funny part is, I know other people can't see us now as we're talking about, I didn't even notice your eyebrows until you talked about them. They looked like regular fine eyebrows to me.
They are.
But like, so I think spending some time actually writing down what are your self-critical negative thoughts, is a good idea to get started. Maybe you want to put them on a daily mood log, and, maybe you want to address some of your resistance to, challenging some of them ahead of time. I think that would be a good idea. But like, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, but, moving, let's say you do want to sort of practice accepting yourself a little bit and challenging some of these negative thoughts you have about yourself. I think trying to, with some humor, with some humility, with some grace, almost like a shoulder shrug, an eyes wide kind of mentality, trying to practice acceptance around just how you are. This is how I am. Like for this first one, about my jaw, right? Well, yeah, it does. I mean, it just does. What am I?
Kyle, people can't see us, but you're showing us the profile so that.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about that before the show, Kyle.
I know. David and I were emailing each other.
What
yeah,
a big
exactly.
Chin, man.
Yeah, it's so ugly and gross. No, I'm just kidding. I've actually come to like my jaw these days because, sometimes people like a strong jaw. My jaw is how it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I didn't even notice. To just move on.
You could give a slice of it to me because mine's too small.
Well, I've accepted it now and I'm keeping it. Thank you.
Great.
Somebody once said that what do you folks think is the secret of sex appeal? Because I've treated, thousands and thousands of hours of therapy with people who felt insecure, and a lot of them felt shy and awkward and, afraid of the dating scene. And what do you people think is the secret of self-esteem? How does someone achieve self-esteem to where people will find you wildly attractive?
I think.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I think that it is probably like 80-20 or 70-30. Internal solution and then a little bit of external solution, right? Like, take my self-criticism for being too skinny or thin, right? Like, yes, that's just how I am. This is my body type, in many ways, like being thin is a privilege and advantageous, right? But like I have always just been kind of thin, and there's no sense beating myself up about being gaunt or thin. It's just how I am, right? But also, like not every single part of me needs to always be thin. Like I can go and try and put on a little weight in the gym if I wanted to. I've tried and tried and tried. I've never really been able to put on a ton of muscle mass, and I'm not going to do steroids, right? But I can go to the gym and try and like tone up a little bit, right? And then I feel good about myself because I notice some changes in my appearance. And so then here I am, having accepted that it's just my body type. I'm just thin, and I've gone to the gym a little bit and I've worked out. I think I look kind of good, and then I'm ready to go, out on a date. I don't know. That's what I think.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. What's your idea about this, Carly? What's the secret of sex appeal?
I think it is. I don't know if it has anything to do with your actual physical appearance. I think it's more confidence and playfulness and being just authentic and I don't know if changing any of those things about the way you look, Kyle, would change how someone experiences you or thinks that you're sexy or not. What do you think?
I think I agree with you, and I guess I neglected to mention framing it in the sense of like how I see myself, in the interaction. Like I feel confident because I've, I don't know, gotten a haircut I think looks good, or put on some clothes that I feel good and comfortable in, and like, or that I've, gone and worked out once this month, right? Like, so I feel good about myself in that way. And so then I feel confident, just like you're saying, and I go out and date and have a good time.
What would you say if you're treating someone, Kyle or Carly or Rhonda, who's a kind of shy and anxious and wants to date, and who looks crappy? They like they're not dressing in a snazzy way, they're not presenting them in a sexy way, and when you bring that up with them, they say, well, women or men or whatever the case may be should love me for the way I am. I shouldn't have to, play games. I shouldn't have to, wear spiffy clothes or something like that.
I mean, I think if you're going to dates looking like a slob and like, that's going to influence. So I would probably give my patients some pretty honest feedback about that. I don't know. What do you guys think? I tend to be more direct and honest about things like that with my patients.
I would too. I would say, look, I think, if that's the belief you want to maintain, more power to you, right? Sadly, I think we do kind of live in the world where there are sort of like sociocultural expectations around sort of looks and things like that. And we, fight against them to some degree, but we have to kind of work with what we got in another degree. And so if you want to wear your stained, like, ripped high school t-shirt and baggy basketball shorts and flip-flops to your date at, Nobu, like, I don't think it's going to go well. Right. But I love your confidence if you want to try and make that happen. If you don't, right. Could, then I'd love to explore some options, or I might even have some tips for you around style and dress, but, right. Like
or there's shame attacking.
Yeah.
You could do a cost-benefit analysis of dressing 100% of the way you want, slobby or not, 100% of the time. Or but David, you have done something else with your patients, haven't you?
Yeah, well, and I had a personal experience preceding that, so I'll briefly tell both. But when I was, a nerdy medical student, I mean, came from a very deeply religious family, and anything about sex or pleasure was like from the devil, and like that. And so when I was a medical student, I dressed real nerdy like, and then I met this fellow that I wrote about in Intimate Connections. I disguised his name because I couldn't make contact with him to get permission. So but his real name was Michael. And he was I think just a hustler in Palo Alto, and for some reason we struck it off like he was Mr. Sex and I was Mr. Nerd, and somehow we became pals. And he worked in Bloomingdale's in the men's department where they had all the fancy sexy clothes, and then he lived with his mommy. He said he was a mommy's boy, and he had a motor scooter that he rode around on, and he just went around having sex all day long.
What a life!
That was his life. So he took me on as a kind of a project because I was the diametrically opposite, and he made me go in and pick out this outrageously sexy outfit. I think it was in Bloomingdale's, but everything he said had to match, the shirt, the slacks, that you have to have like sexy boots you have to wear, and the underpants and the belt. It all has to be matched and integrated. And he looked like a gigolo or a human lollipop or something like that. He always looked just fantastic. And he had dark glasses, and he told me to get a sexy haircut, and he did all these things. And I remember I felt so awkward putting those clothes on and walking out of Bloomingdale's into the mall, and it was real weird. I thought it was like wearing a clown's outfit or something.
Oh gosh!
And all of a sudden, I noticed women looking at me for the first time, and it was really a jolt. And so it's something that you can do because your clothing is powerful. It projects a message, and I used that a lot then when I was in private practice in Philadelphia. And 60% of my patients were single and didn't know how to get into the dating arena. And I loved working with women and men. Women were easier because they were more into clothing and fabric and more kind of flexible, and men were more rigid. But I remember this fellow who he was very successful, making tons of money and everything, but he looked kind of crappy. And I pointed that out to him, and that maybe he'd want to get a different look. And he said, no, women should love me, for the way I am. I shouldn't have to play games. And I say, but the way you look like shit. And I said to him, what kind of woman do you fantasize? And he would describe like a Playmate model with, fancy garter belt and all these beautiful clothes. And I said, well, women are a little like that too. They're looking for guys who look great. And if I can turn your love life from rags to riches, no problem, but you have to do what I tell you to do or I won't work with you.
Right.
And he said, well, what do I have to do? And there was this woman at the King of Prussia Mall, and she also worked in a Bloomingdale's, and her name was Kaneko Finkelstein. If you live and hear this, email me. I'd love to hear from you. But she was just a genius, especially with men's clothing. And I said, go and tell what you have to do if you want me to fix your, terrible dating life and turn it around. Go to Kaneko Finkelstein. Tell him Dr. Burns referred you to her and that you need a sex uniform. And pick out everything for you: the T-shirt, underpants, the shirt, the vest, the slacks, the shoes, the boots, everything. And you have to agree to buy everything she tells you to wear and not question anything. And she'll turn you into a living doll. It was kind of fun, and the ones who did it really, beefed up their social life a lot. That's not the only secret, but it's certainly a piece of it, and it also shows a flexibility to get out of that rigid mindset
right.
that you're in that can be so off-putting to other
right.
people.
David, I think I've met Kaneko before. I'm from Philadelphia, King of Prussia, so.
You think you met her?
I'm kidding. I haven't met Kaneko. But no,
she was a genius with clothing and fabric. She could just put outfits together that looked like something, it's like being Michelangelo or Rembrandt or something. Some people have this tremendous artistic skill with clothing. And it's a whole other dimension from the way most people look. Even people who look great, there's still another dimension beyond that. And if you do that, it could, it blows people's minds. You do that sometimes, Carly. I've seen you at Miriam's for a dinner party with
my nice dresses
people, and you have pretty gorgeous stuff that you wear, and I think you have a good feel for that as well.
Thank you. Well, I think on a serious note, I know we're joking a lot, but I think what you're talking about now kind of ties into one of the other topics, was like the idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy, and how. So one thing, right? Of course, our outward appearance is super important with being more attractive, but sometimes the story we have in our mind and clinging to that, if we tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm not attractive enough," or "I'm always going to be alone," or "I'll never find someone," or "I'm going to be single forever," or "Why even bother going on this date? It's going to suck," right? That can then function as a self-fulfilling prophecy and actually lead you to like give off an energy on the date or send this energy into the universe that is less attractive. Versus if you tell yourself or even like manifest, in the next 6 to 12 months, like I'm going to meet my person. Like, how would you then enter into the date, or how would you walk through life each day? And even like if you tell yourself that, what would life look like if you stopped worrying about never finding someone? Like, how would you show up each day? How would you act on a date versus if you believe, oh, it's going to suck? I think it all plays in, and that's why the internal is so important to the external as well.
I have a question for you guys, you three people. Let me put it like that, because I when I was in that dating phase, I was pretty, and it relates to what you're saying right now, that there were the two mindsets that you can get into. Mm-hmm. One of is that just hypnotic, insecure, it's awful. I'm having to, try to ask someone for a date, or I just know I'm going to get shot down, and then you do, and it's a powerful hypnotic state mm-hmm. that does act as a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's almost like the universe knows you're in that state,
right,
and gives you, what you're expecting, and then you can be in another state where suddenly your fears have disappeared and you just feel sexy and awesome. And then everybody is attracted to you, and
it's a real thing.
Oh, you've experienced that also?
Oh yeah, when I'm like depressed and like telling myself that I'm never going to find someone, I am maybe less attractive, and then there's times where I'm like on top of the world and feeling great and attractive, and I then get like in 1 week, like 2 men will ask me for my number somewhere. It's a real thing. I'm serious.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a real thing. It's amazing. It can happen to men. It can happen to women. When a woman is doing it, I call it the queen bee phenomenon. When you just know you're what everybody wants, or the person that everybody wants. And when you know that, everybody wants you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you walk around more confident, more sure of yourself. You're like funnier in public. You seem calmer. Your energy, you're more authentic, and that's attractive to people.
Yeah. But I think what another element of what's going on is like your inner attention is not focused at all on the self-criticisms. It's almost like you've let them go, you've batted them away, you've challenged them, right? And then you are focused on other things. You are focused on other people, the activities you're doing, making jokes, having fun,
smiling
like
more.
We talked about, smiling more, maybe doing a little, kind of false touch. Angela Crum will talk about her flirting tips to practice. But you're not focused. It's like the negative thoughts about yourself aren't there. Yeah. They're just not there.
Yeah. It's an amazing phenomenon. I used to, would have a friend or something. Like there was this guy. I won't give his last name, Mark, but he was this kind of. He was a pretty good-looking guy, but he had worked at this as an engineer at the Stanford Linear Accelerator. And he had a Ferrari and a wife and a fancy house in Portola Valley, and then he took seriously tune in, turn on and drop out, and he gave all of that up and became a beekeeper in Los Altos. And it was a dramatic change, but he got divorced from his wife. He lost his Ferrari, his house, everything. He gave it all up. Wow. But he wanted to do more dating, and so I said, well, I'll kind of mentor you a little bit, the same way that Michael was doing with me. And so we went into a place, a pizza place where they're selling pizza. And, and we sat down at a table. I said, let's just sit down. There were about 6 or 8 people there around a big round table. I said, why don't we just sit down? We'll just join these people. And then I could see, this is probably going to sound terrible, but Michael just used to do outrageous things, and people always liked it. And so I noticed that the fellow that I was with was attracted to this pretty cute, young lady, girl, whatever word you want to use, on the opposite side, kind of eyeing her. And he said to me, well, what should I do? And I said, well, why don't you just walk over to her and start making out with her? He said,
"Oh,
you serious?"
no.
I said, yeah, go for it. It'll blow everybody's minds. And she's kind of eyeing you too. I'm sure she'll love it. And so he went over and started making out with her. She got all excited. It really kind of blew his mind, but it was kind of like.
I think we need to be careful about that.
Consent.
Next
week
we're going to be talking to Lee and Angela.
We heard your chatter in the 1960s. People were chattering in that same way, and we learned to ignore that. But I guess there's wisdom in what you're saying. But there are so many things that we use to hold ourselves back and keep ourselves trapped in these inhibitions and serious patterns of being that. Kind of end up, taking all the fun out of life. But, he wasn't doing anything aggressive. She was attracted to him, and I could tune in to what was going on. I said, just go for it.
But if it was nowadays, he would walk up and say, "Is it okay? Can I make out with you?" And then, unless he got enthusiastic, sure. Yes, we do not make out with people.
Yeah, that's right.
That would be my move. I mean, I've been with my partner for a while now, but like I'd be on a date and I'd be going, I kind of do a little change the focus. How do you think this is going? I think it's going really good. I kind of, I think we're having fun. I like you. And then depending on what the other person would say, oh yeah, I think so too. And then I'd kind of be close, have my arm around them. Like, I think I'd kind of like to make out. What do you think? And they'd be like, yeah, okay. And then you just go for it, It was sort of like it was a little bit of a move. And
I actually had a guy on a date like last week that was like nervous. And he told me, oh, I had wanted to kiss you, but I didn't think it was okay to ask. And I was like, no, you can. Asking is it's not awkward. It makes it feel.
So he asked you, and you said, "What? No, jerk. Will you think I'm a loser?"
No. He told me later that he had wanted to ask me, but that he chickened out because he thought that it was too awkward to ask me. And I said, no, I could tell that you wanted to, but I saw the hesitation, and so you can just ask, and I can say yes or no.
That's what, Kyle, you were talking about acceptance. It's okay to be awkward. Like, it's awkward.
It's okay to be, sweaty with a thin and with a big lower jaw and divots in your hair. I mean, it's just, you got to embrace yourself as how you are.
Yeah, and just be that.
And awkward, and got to make it work for you, right?
And Kyle, you had mentioned embracing the practice of interpersonal skills rather than this intense dating.
Well, yeah, I think it's a kind of a common dating pitfall, kind of like David and Carly were even bringing up a little bit, that you go, like you have negative thoughts about or expectations around how the date should go, right? And you're kind of like, let's say you're wanting to practice like going up to people and sort of like, trying to start conversation by noting something that they have on or that they're wearing that you think is cool, right? Like, oh, I like your shoes, or, oh, what's the logo on the hat? That seems neat. Or, oh, I like your jacket. Where'd you get it? Right. Or something to sort of initiate conversation, right? Something benign to, if you're in a strange setting and you want to go up and try and start flirting or something. If you go up and you have the mindset like, oh, like, that should lead to a prolonged conversation, or that should lead to a date, and then it doesn't, right? You just sort of feel depressed and, down and rejected, like we've been talking about already. But if you have the idea of like, oh, I'm sort of a little socially awkward. I'm out of practice with dating. I want to be able to initiate conversations smoothly. I'm just going to go and practice, going up to people and starting conversations just for the sake of going up to people and starting conversations, maybe by acknowledging something I find neat about what they have on or what they're doing or what's going on around us, right? And then if you can do that, then tick it off, almost like just like the rejection practice in a way, right?
Absolutely.
You've just done it, and you started the conversation. Even if the other person ignores you, you say, oh, great. Well, I went up and I did it, and I commented on how I liked the shoes they were wearing, and then I walked away, and that was it. That was what I'm trying to practice. I'm going to keep going.
I was treating an attorney in Philadelphia, a youngish woman, maybe your age range, Carly, and she was wanting to date, but she was kind of paranoid and very heavy and serious. She was a courtroom litigator and didn't know how to kind of get into the dating scene. And she said that there was this really handsome guy that would be in the elevator in her building when she was going or coming back home from work, and how could she start a conversation with them? And I took a page out of your book, Kyle. There, so you want to be playful, be in a laughing. In a laughing mood. And she said, well, I'm just so serious. How would I do that? And I said, well, you said you think he's also an attorney. Why don't you fantasize him right now defending a case in court in his underpants? and she started laughing, and that it just caught her funny bone. So I said, when you see him on the elevator, you can just comment on something that he's wearing, like his tie or something like that. But when you do it, fantasize him in his underpants in court defending a case. So that'll make you light-hearted, and you won't seem so deadly serious. So she promised to try that. So the next day, there he was in the morning, and they were just the two of them on the elevator, and so she mentioned to him that she thought his tie was very attractive, but she fantasized him, in court, in
his underwear,
and she started laughing when she told him that, and then he said to her, what's making you laugh? And she said, oh, I don't know. There's just something about you that makes me laugh. and then he said, well, maybe we should go out and have a cup of coffee this evening and learn more about that. And so she said, absolutely. So she kind of snared her man that way.
Well, I think on that note, to what Kyle was saying, even like if you're brand new to dating, or maybe you're just getting out of a relationship and you're stepping your toes into it again, don't just go on a date with like the man of your dreams as like the first date you've been on in like a year. Like go on some practice dates, right? Like get on a dating app, maybe go out with like 3 to 5 different people that maybe are less I don't want to say like you're less interested in, but maybe like lower stakes, and try some things out. Try being more playful.
Yeah, right.
And then you're more ready for the man of your dreams when he comes, and you don't screw up the date. Being too serious or.
I think that's excellent advice. I mean, you can even like the low stakes social interactions that maybe have the potential for dates. Like if you have a dog, go to the dog park, try and strike up a conversation with someone, if you're,
practice flirting.
Practice flirting.
You can talk to somebody at the grocery store.
Yes. Talk to someone at the grocery store, behind the counter, right? Maybe there's in the park near my house, there's going to be a free magic show on Friday. Go to free events that are social and see if you can talk to people, right? As a more of kind of a low stakes way to try and practice some initiating or whatever.
Now, one thing that's common is what to do when you're getting rejected. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, Kyle, but I'm thinking about 2 experiences you and I had. One was the first Sunday hike you came on, and you were pretty unhappy because this fellow that you'd been dating had rejected you, and you were really beating up on yourself.
Oh yeah,
and not only
I've
did
been
you
there.
overcome that, Yeah, but you hit a home run, and I don't know if you want to talk about how that happened, but that was really cool. And then it happened again with I think your current partner.
Yes.
At a certain phase had kind of was treating you in a little bit of an indifferent way.
He was.
And you made him snap too. Can you, if you want to talk about those
you
things,
have an excellent memory, David. The first time I got dumped and I was really feeling down and depressed and unhappy and pretty worthless. I actually not necessarily worthless, but hopeless. Right. I think the main sort of idea that I was struggling with that David helped me a lot on that Sunday hike was like, I'm not going to be successful again, or like, I won't find anybody else as good, or I can't even go out and have a good time. Right. Like this notion that it's not going to work out for me in the dating scene. Right.
And we've been dating him for some time, and then he surprisingly dumped you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of, a bit of a surprise.
Painful.
Yeah, it was very painful. And we worked on a lot of my negative thoughts and, true to form, we challenged them. But then David's homework for me was to go out that night, was to go to the gay bar, Splash, in San Jose. And you said I had to go, right? Because I was convinced that I wouldn't be able to meet somebody or find anybody else, right? Or that I couldn't even go out in these spaces anymore. And so I did my homework. I got, kind of dressed up and went out to the bar.
What did I tell you to do? What did I tell you to do there?
Well, I mean, I can remember what I did do. What are you thinking? You tell me. I don't exactly remember.
Find some handsome dude and get laid.
Oh, that's exactly what happened. I went out and had fun. Started I was like, well, this is my homework. I guess I've got to do it.
Did you really give him that homework, David?
Of course he did.
Of course he did. David.
And I went out and I was like, okay, started dancing with some guy, and then we're making out on the dance floor, and then next thing you know, he's like, you want to come back to my place? I'm like, dear God, David, that worked out well.
And then what did I promise would happen as soon as you found someone more awesome?
Oh yeah, because then the guy who dumped me would come back around, which of course he did.
Oh wow!
And then
that's the way it works.
That's just the way it works. Right. It was kind of weird. As soon as my attention was off of him and I wasn't longing and pining and, trying to confabulate ways that we could make it work back together. And I kind of stopped chasing and let the other person go a little bit. Then
it goes out through the airwaves. The other person knows. You don't have to let them know. Oh, Kyle's hot again. He probably doesn't even want me.
I'm hot. And I know it. I can act on it. And then I'm ready to be chased again, right? Because I'm not interested anymore.
Yeah. And then he came chasing you and you dumped him.
I did. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think those dimensions are very important, and they're not talked about that much, but you can go from rags to riches and back to rags again, depending on your mindset. And it happens with guys, it happens with the ladies too. And when you know you're sexy, you're sexy. And I had a patient in Philadelphia, and he wouldn't know who he was, but when he came to me, he was very depressed, but he was, I think, perhaps the ugliest man in Philadelphia. He looked like a frog, and but he had tremendous confidence.
Did you tell him that, David, that he looks like a frog?
No, I just observed it, and because that wasn't what he was being treated for. But gorgeous women were chasing him like crazy, and he always had one or two, on his arms because he just thought he was cool, and so the universe just accepted that. And it was just that thing that it's not so much what you've got, but how you create your own internal reality with the messages you give yourself. And if you give yourself the message that you're beautiful and or handsome or awesome or really cool, and and you're not needy. I think the killer in dating is needing us. And and being so afraid of rejection and saying I need love, and people hate me for saying this, but if you need love, love will not come to you. You'll get rejection, and part of, I think, being successful in the dating arena or life in general is not needing things. It's a Buddhist concept, but I think not needing love is the key to getting lots of love.
Yeah, it has a weird paradoxical
and
effect.
Also giving lots of love freely, right?
Yes.
Like if you give love to the universe, whether it's friends or family or a partner, then I think it comes back to you too.
I want to circle back to what David was just talking about. One of my favorite lines of yours is, your clinginess forces the other person to reject you. Right.
Yeah, right.
And that was one of the things I wanted to just at least briefly touch about. I know we've been, I can't believe we've been talking for an hour already. But I think part of the mindset you might want to cultivate going into a dating experience is that if you do find someone you're attracted to and drawn to, you're going to want to pursue them. Right.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to pursue them. But you can kind of trip up a little bit if you become overly clingy, and you're double texting, triple texting, trying to, get them to hang out all the time. I think you have to resist the urge in a sense, right? It's like a bad habit, wanting to compulsively chase someone else.
Actually.
Yes, right. The chasing is a bad habit, and you got to rein it in. Like the second story David brought up with my current partner, he and I have been things have been going well for, weeks, months. And then all of a sudden he just fell off the map for the weekend. Didn't hear from him. He didn't call me. He didn't text me. Right. And I felt this huge urge to call, text, pursue, chase. And it was a little challenging. I had to go through some deprivation, of not giving into that urge, right? But I let it.
Didn't we talk again at that point?
I think maybe we had. I forget. Yeah. But I specifically did not chase him. I didn't pursue him, right? And then all of a sudden, a few days had gone by, and he comes back to me, and he comes back around, and I was like, I kind of gave him a little bit of the cold shoulder, and then kind of was elusive, right? And then he starts chasing me, trying to figure out what's wrong. And then I drop, I didn't hear from you. I thought you had kind of lost interest, And then he kind of freaked out and then set up this great, beautiful date and was like, no, I want to pursue things. I want to keep dating. I don't want to drop you. And here we are. Now we're, we have a dog in a house, and
wow, this is a good lesson for me. I think next time I want to do that, I'm going to call David instead.
Yes.
Well, I've hinted to you a couple times, Carly, and you ignore my input, and maybe you won't this next time. But it's the Burns rule that people only want what they can't get, and they never want what they can get.
You're right.
And so
you're right.
If you're what somebody can get, they're forced to not want you. And it's really a hard lesson to learn. Thank you, Carly.
Right.
Well, thank you, Kyle.
Put you on speed dial, David.
So much to the table, Carly, and if you add that, then you'll be the queen bee phenomenon, and every man will want you.
All right. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining this conversation, and Carly, thank you. You've made it so fun and interesting and given so much helpful feedback for people when they begin or are in the midst of their dating journey. And David, as always, you've been fantastic.
This was fun with both of you. I can't thank you enough for it's bringing your life blood, your joy, your laughter, your wisdom to this podcast. It couldn't have been better, I don't think.
Well, thank you. Fun.
It was so fun, and it was nice to hang out here with all of you and Carly, and we had some nice tips that I think complemented each other quite well. And I could probably just keep talking about dating for another 3 hours, but it was fun.
Next week, we're going to have Angela Crum and Lee Harrington talking more about dating.
Secrets of flirting.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've probably heard that book, The Inner Game of Tennis. They're going to give us the inner game of flirting, and all the right moves, and how detailed flirting instruction manual.
So that'll be really fun.
Masters.
That'll be fun.
And I wanted to make an announcement about the Feeling Great Book Club. That since 2021, the Feeling Great Book Club has been a really great way for people all over the universe, and of course across the world, to come together to learn and to practice the powerful tools that you write about in your book, Feeling Great. And it's facilitated by two incredible team psychiatrists, Brandon Vance and Heather Clegg, and it includes large group demonstrations and small group practice. It's, people who have graduated from the book club come back to facilitate it. It's 12 weeks. It's going to begin in mid-September. The meetings are 80 minutes long, and they're 2 times on Mondays at 4 p.m. or Wednesdays at 8 a.m., both Pacific time. So the book club is accessible to people all over the world. And the cost is $240 but there is a sliding scale down to whatever anyone can afford. And for more details and to register, you can go to feelinggreattherapycenter.com/book club.
And in short, cool. if some of you are reading Feeling Great and you want to have a social connection for 12 weeks in a row with other people with similar interests and reading a chapter each week, then having exercises related to what you learn in that chapter, Q&A, this is an awesome way to learn, to change the way you think and feel, and also to connect with other people, to get your questions answered. I've heard nothing wonderful about the Brandon and Heather's incredible book clubs. And I had the opportunity, my book, Feeling Great, just came out in China, and it came out on their Mental Health Awareness Day.
Nice.
And the publisher in China arranged for a number of celebrities in China to interview me.
Wow.
And the one that interviewed me it was a 2-hour interview, and they recorded it, and it'll be edited and put on YouTube. But we're very interested in Brandon and Heather's book clubs, and saying, would that be something that would work in China for people to read the book and then get together in groups? And so I was promoting Brandon and Heather and this woman who's a top Chinese filmmaker, actually. Is intensely interested, and it's just a really neat thing if you want to join these book clubs. They've been doing it for 2 or 3 years at least, and I've heard nothing but praise about this.
I just referred someone I'm working with to the book club to get some extra practice.
I've had lots of patients attend, and I've only heard positive feedback on it.
Yeah, Brandon and Heather are so cool and awesome.
Okay, you guys, thank you so much, and we'll have you on again sometime.
Thank
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.